I guess the other thing we'd like to find out too, I know Wendel, I don't want to say Wendel's been entrenched for lack of a better word, but Wendel has been, the SkyWarn coordinator in Eddy and Culberson and all the other counties, for a number of years. You're what? You're into your second year now, or something like that?
Well, this is actually my first year as coordinator of the amateur radio group in Chaves County. I was first trained as a spotter out of Wilmington, Ohio, back in I believe it was 1997, right around in there. And since then, I've done some spotting in the Denver area, and then when we moved down here to New Mexico, I started spotting, and like I say, actually became appointed coordinator about within the last year.
What are you trying to establish in Chaves County as far as SkyWarn? Are you looking to do what Wendel does here in Eddy County and the other counties, or are you kind of looking to maybe do some just a tad different?
Well, like I said in jest earlier, but it was really quite serious. Those are some big shoes to fill, what Wendel does. Wendel takes on a lot of responsibility.
I lie a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, regardless, either real or perceived, it's a big responsibility and to cover that much area. And really my goal right now, Mike, is to focus on Chaves County. As even Kerry Jones from the National Weather Service in Albuquerque brought out in our training session, and I think Wendel touched on, we have much fewer reports of severe weather in Chaves County because we have much fewer storm spotters, and we need more trained storm spotters in Chaves County. But along with that goes the responsibility of having interoperability with, well, the Baca County, for instance. Our area's DEC up there, I mean, we stay in touch with him via amateur radio because Baca County, I mean, you've got a few jackrabbits up there, and you don't have a whole lot of population, but...
And a lot of severe storms, though.
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of activity, so we need to maintain that interoperability with them in Lincoln County as well as Eddy and Lee and so forth, and that's really something that we strive to do, and then bring Chaves County up is what I want to do, bring them up to more of a, just more functional in that area, and more awareness and more people involved, so that we can, make the program more effective in Chaves County.
Wendel, is there anything you'd like to add to what he just mentioned?
Well, that's the idea. Is I think the key here is the public awareness side of things. That's huge. As coordinators, as SkyWarn coordinators, Jim and I's first responsibility is when we activate SkyWarn operations in our respective counties, our number one priority is to keep our spotters safe. Mm. We're not trying to get anybody out there and get them hurt or killed, but we're trying to keep them safe, and we want good, credible reports from those spotters. And my second area of responsibility that I kind of feel I'm obligated for is public awareness, and that's what we're doing. This is part of what we're doing here. Is yes, we do have severe weather in southeastern New Mexico, and as Jim said, we may not have it all the time. And he mentioned that we are kind of on the fringes of Tornado Alley. That's a very correct statement. We're kind of on the front door, the front doorstep maybe of Tornado Alley. We can go a couple of years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in southeast New Mexico at a time, at a stretch, and not have really too much severe weather that's really affecting our populated communities, and then all of a sudden we get hammered. And like Jim mentioned, the October 21st storm last year, he actually chased that. He has some really great video that he put on YouTube, and if you go to my website, you can see those YouTube videos. We have our primary season is now, April through about June, up until about the 4th of July. That's usually our primary severe weather season. Sometimes, not every year, we have a second season, and that runs from about the end of August through October. So it's all about public awareness.
Well, speaking of public awareness, I know that Wendel, you and I have spent many time on the phone, talking about storms, and many a newscast have been devoted to the kind of weather the kind of unique weather that we see around here, and hopefully we'll be able to get Jim into the mix of this. But I'm just kind of curious, Wendel, from your vantage point. I know you mentioned that you guys are also involved in amateur radio, but we got social media, you got the internet, you got TV, you've got you've got all of our stations here at Pecos Valley Broadcasting, from La Grande to AM 990 KSVP to KTZA 92.9, and of course Jack 106.5 FM. How crucial is it for the media, and especially now with the new media coming up, to get the word out about bad weather?
Here's the deal with SkyWarn. SkyWarn is all about getting people who love to watch weather happens, severe weather, train those people and work with them and have responsible people with credible reports, getting those reports, credible reports to the National Weather Service. Then the forecasters on duty can take those reports and put them in the mix with Doppler radar and other things that they're seeing. And they can go, you know what, we've got a really bad situation here that's going to affect Roswell, Hobbs, Artesia, Carlsbad. And then they cut their appropriate warning. And the crux is the spotters with the reports. A good spotter report is invaluable. And the forecasters can really stay on top of the situation when they have those reports. And then once that warning goes out, it's your responsibility, the radio stations, the media, to get that information out to the public, and that's what we're trying to do. Jim and I are working very hard to try to make it all mesh together. You know, we're kind of the go-between between the spotters and the Weather Service and the media.
And is there anything you'd like to add to that, Jim?
Yeah, there was, and his thoughts are, you know, they come and go.
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just, yeah.
That's okay.
All right.
This just went.
Well, I think another thing that I'd like to talk about now, or have one of you or both of you, you know, talk about this. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, people getting complacent. I mean, you think, well, you know, we have bad floods. People are thinking, yeah, we haven't had any rain in several months. You know, we're in the middle of a drought and that kind of thing. But, you know, regarding the long-range forecast, what have you guys seen? Or is this drought going to continue for a while? Are we going to have a monsoon season, or just exactly what are we looking at? You know, maybe 90 days down the road.
Well, now you want me to start lying to you, right?
Well, no, I mean, you know, just based on the models and the prognostications and everything else.
Yeah, I was going to say he's more qualified to answer that.
No, I don't know that I'm qualified.
Well,
we are in a drought.
Well, you know what? I kind of look at it this way. Forecasting the weather is kind of like handicapping a horse race, or handicapping baseball season, or handicapping football season. You know, you can have all the numbers and all the stats in front of you and everything else, and you can say, well, 6 months down the road, this, you know, team A is going to win it, or, you know, they end up last. I mean, in a way, isn't forecasting the weather kind of like that too, or
sure
kind of looking at that?
Yeah, especially long-range forecasting. We are in a drought. It is getting worse with time. It's not getting better. We're coming out of one of the strongest La Niñas we've had since 1950, and it looks like that we're not going to be free from this event until at least the 4th of July. So, you know, in short, the next couple of months are going to continue to be rough. I don't see much hope for any meaningful rainfall across the area that's going to break the drought. We're going to have thunderstorms. You know, we may have some heavy rain events from some of those thunderstorms. It's the season. It's the time of the year for that. It'll be highly localized if we do. And then the summer, do we get a monsoon? That's the million-dollar question. If we do, then it's going to help. If we don't, some of the long-range models are hinting maybe that we'll go right back into La Nina this fall and winter. And we may do this for 2, 3, 4 years. La Ninas can be multiple-year events. So, you know, this just may be the beginning of this. And we go back to like 1999, 2000. From then up until 2003, we had this very same problem. And we had the Los Alamos fires back in that time frame. And we had some serious fires here in southeastern New Mexico, the south central mountains up around Mescalero, Cloudcroft, and Ruidoso areas. This is not anything new. This is going to happen from time to time. And, you know, the fire weather season is upon us. The next couple of months do not look very encouraging. And people just need to be careful out there.
Now, explain, I know we've talked about La Nina a lot. We've also got El Nino. Can you explain those two for people that may not be familiar with them?
Well, it's very simple. Well, it's not simple. It's very complicated. But I try to narrow that down to this. When you're in El Nino phase, it's the equatorial waters of the Pacific, the waters around the equator. Ever so often, every 2 to 4 years, they heat up and become warmer than normal. Well, when the water becomes warmer than normal, you have more evaporation into the atmosphere, which feeds more moisture into the subtropical jet stream, and then the subtropical jet stream feeds that moisture northeastward into the desert southwest and southern areas of the United States. We have more rain. La Nina is completely the opposite. The Pacific waters cool down to below normal. The water is colder than normal. You have less evaporation, and then the jet stream, the subtropical jet stream becomes very inactive, and the polar jet stream becomes very active, and we end up high and dry, usually down here in the desert Southwest.
Was last year, could last year be considered an El Nino year with all the rain that we had?
It was an El Nino year, and it was a fairly strong El Nino.
Okay. Well, this has been very informative. We've been spending about the last 20 minutes or so talking about weather with Jim Tucker and Wendel Malone. Jim is the brand new SkyWarn coordinator for Chaves County. Wendel this is old hat for Wendel. You know, he's been doing it for a number of years for Eddy and Culberson counties, and then a bunch of other counties that are within the National Weather Service, the Midland National Weather Service office territory. Is there anything that you'd like to cover that we haven't talked about here in the last few minutes?
Cover amateur radio too. We haven't talked much about that.
Right. Well, actually, you know, and this was one thing I did want to kind of touch on, really emphasize for our viewers and listeners, is that, you know, spotters are needed. Spotters are a very valuable part of all this, both amateur radio spotters as well as, and I like to call this several arms of the SkyWarn program, because you do have your amateur radio operators, you do have your public, and then your public servants, fire, police, and so forth. And it's very important that people get trained. Now, the Weather Service does require that you be properly trained before you become a spotter. And they want that because, you know, it is easy to feel a wind. You know, you walk out here and, whoa, you get hit by a strong wind. And, oh, yeah, the wind here is blowing, you know, 100 miles an hour. Well, you know, sometimes that can be real deceptive. What may feel like to some people a 100-mile-an-hour wind may only be a 30-mile-an-hour wind.
Right.
So the Weather Service obviously wants good information, good accurate reports. So they do want people to be trained. However, if you walk out your door and you see baseballs, you know, they're tearing your roof off, and you know, I mean, obviously find a place of shelter first. But after everything's settled down and you come out and you see some hailstones in your yard, and they're bigger than 1 inch, or you've got a good mind they may be, measure them and report that to the Weather Service. You don't have to be a trained storm spotter to do that. By the same token, if you have any kind of interest in this at all, we really encourage you to take a storm spotter class, get trained up on what these cloud formations look like, what they're telling you, so that you can be more effective as a spotter, and so that we can, you know, have a better network of spotters to get the word to the Weather Service in a quicker fashion.